I'm not fasting. Did a nice little brunch this afternoon.
Dude, stop.
Nice. It was the opposite of intermittent fasting. I'm pretty sure
Yes.
eating Potbelly at 3 qualifies.
Precisely the opposite. Although I didn't eat until like 12:15, but that's just because I wake up at 11. True slacker.
I mean, DFS is a good way to do intermittent fasting, like unintentionally.
Poker used to be like that for me. Like I just wouldn't eat while I played poker. And then I would go nuts in like the 2 hours where I wasn't playing. But I would always forget to eat. That's when I was skinny. And now I play DFS and I'm fat.
You get the standing desk and you'd be all good.
Oh, standing desk sounds fucking awful. Sounds awful.
What is up? PeteyMac with you, Awesemo, as we get ready for a big Friday slate where we're all basically playing amateur meteorologists with the way that the weather sets up here. But there is plenty of intrigue along the way as we bring in Alex Awesemo Baker, one of the top DFS players out there. First time I get to work with the Godfather here, so looking forward to that. How are you, Alex?
What's up, man? Excited to do a show together. And we got a good slate to talk about with all the weather and stuff. I'm excited to hear. I always like playing a little bit of amateur meteorologist with people. So I'm excited to hear what you got up your sleeve here.
It's really not that hard. You just look at the radar, and if there's a lot of yellow, you don't play it. Boom, done. It's that simple, unless it's like Washington or something. But we've got, of course, Max Smotritskiy, DFS Max on Twitter. With us as well, and Max is, I believe, not fasting at the moment. So you're in good spirits today.
I'm not hangry. That's
not
what
hangry.
I like. I'm not hangry.
Our producer Chris Karen is hangry, so we're dealing with him.
That's right, and having a hangry producer is never fun.
No. So we got to be on our game. Otherwise, we got to hear from the cranky producer the whole time. You guys can get involved in the chat on YouTube, and as you guys know by now, if you can't watch the show, you can always listen to everything we do here at Awesemo. Almost all of our Awesemo YouTube shows are available through the Awesemo Podcast Network. There's a podcast for every sport available on every major platform. So go to awesemo.com/podcast. You can check out the latest. And if you leave a 5-star rating and review one of our podcasts with your Twitter handle or email address, you'll be eligible to win a free week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. One winner awarded every Friday. Reviews eligible to win for up to 1 year. So be sure to check this out. Give us a like, subscribe. We appreciate all of that, of course, as well. So let's dive into it. I mean, first of all, the weather concerns, as we alluded to right off the top, Alex. How do you handle a night like tonight? Like, what's your way of seeing when there's 5-6 different locations where weather is going to be a key factor? How do you organize all that when, it's crunch time? We're finding out this game's postponed. This game's going to start late and it's just chaos.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is you just kind of X out games on Fantasy Cruncher is how I do it. So just remove them from the player pool, and that makes it a lot easier to build lineups and not worry about it. It's all about like picking the right ones to cross off, of course, and that's what we're here to help with.
And there's a lot that goes into it too, Max, where if you think, all right, they can get in 5 innings, but then I don't know if they're going to get in 9, and that might allow you to play a pitcher, but not go with a stack in that spot because you're not getting as many at bats. We saw a little bit of that with the Washington game a couple of days ago, and that was suspended after 4 innings or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I always try to grab as much leverage as I can. So if people are off a game for some reason, and I think maybe it'll play and the bats look good for me in that game, then I'll run like 10% of that particular team or something, just in case it plays. And if I lose, I lose. But if it plays for some reason and they're all 1% owned, helps you win a GPP.
Yeah, and it's great. There's value in the risk. Sometimes you're willing to play it. So let's look at the top pitchers here. And, again, weather's going to factor in for a lot of these top pitchers on this given night. It shouldn't be an issue for Garrett Cole with a tremendous matchup against the Detroit Tigers. it will be cold. It will be windy in Detroit, but not expecting a whole lot of rain. And I don't think there's any doubt, Alex, Garrett Cole is the number one on the slate tonight, pitching wise.
I've never heard of this Garrett Cole. Well, yeah, he should obviously, like, anytime you're going up against Tigers, that is a great spot, as much as I hate to say it. And he's got a matchup today where the Tigers don't hit well and they strike out more than average. Plus, the temperature in Detroit today is going to be sub 50 degrees. So very good temperature for pitching. I expect this one to be a no-brainer.
Max, is this, I guess the question is really just, do you just lock him in to all your lineups? I mean, how nuts do you get on Garrett Cole tonight?
Yeah, like we have him projected at 59% owned. That's a lot. And usually, like, I try to find a way to get away from guys like that. But I don't think I can in this spot. It's just too good a matchup. He's too good a pitcher. They're letting him go deep into games. There's really no, like, there's no spots where I'm like, oh, maybe this will happen or this will happen. It just doesn't seem like he has such a high floor and such a high ceiling that I think it just makes sense to maybe go over the field on this one and give yourself leverage that way. Yeah, I don't know like what Alex thinks about just locking him in all of your lineups, but right now that's what I'm thinking.
What do you think, Alex? Is that something you'll consider in the hours ahead?
I mean, I certainly think I'm gonna be happy if I have lineups where he's in there, and he looks like a great play. I don't know if I'm gonna go out of my way to like force him in, but the price isn't exorbitant on Draftkings. On Fanduel at 12.2K, that might limit your options as stacking a little bit. So regardless, a guy I'm going to be exposed to a lot for sure.
And we got a question in the chat about the moisture in New York. We don't have to worry about that because the game's in Detroit. So that's all clear. Basically, the only thing, as long as Garrett Cole's eating his meals today, I think he'll be a pretty good play. So I guess if you wanted to look somewhere else or maybe on DraftKings, find that number 2, Walker Bueller gets the San Francisco Giants. And looking at what Bueller's done this year, he's just been remarkably consistent, Max. He's thrown between 6 innings and 7 innings in all 9 of his starts. It's not a terrible matchup against San Francisco, and you pretty well know what you're going to get. Yeah,
Bueller is really good. The only problem with all, I guess, the Dodgers pitchers is like, how long are they going to go into the game? Like, the most he's thrown this year is 105 pitches, and that was on his last start. He also faced San Fran in his last start, by the way. And I don't know, just some of my views, and they're just, I guess, arbitrary in that sense. But facing the same team twice in a row is never fun just because they've seen you just before. And it's hard to keep them off balance that way. But yeah, I mean, his stuff is great. He's priced up, definitely going to be maybe half as owned as Cole. So you'll get some leverage that way. And he gets to face a pitcher, which is always nice. Although I don't know, some of these Detroit hitters, apologies, Alex, are maybe worse than the pitchers in the NL. So yeah, I mean, definitely a good play. I think you can lock in both of them just because there are some cheap stacks that we're going to talk about. And it's a weird slate where all the stacks are really projected very close together. There's no one stack that jumps out at you. So yeah, I think it's definitely a spot where you want to lock in those points at pitcher and just kind of take a shot at the low-owned stacks.
What do you think, Alex? What do you make of Bueller's spot tonight against the Giants?
The Giants, they've been a lot better than I expected this year, with a winning percent near 60%. A lot of that's been because the bats have been performing really well. Buster Posey, like seemingly out of nowhere, is having a career best ISO, and Evan Longoria like seems to have not faded off at all. So some of these older guys are really putting up numbers.
Brandon Crawford is still as like a home run leader now. All of a sudden, I don't know what they're doing in San Francisco.
I mean, Brandon Crawford is basically as good as Ohtani. So anyway, the thing is, the Dodgers Park is very, very good for pitchers. So I don't think this is nearly as good a spot as with Cole versus the Tigers. So Bueller is going to be just in a second there. But on his own merits, he looks like a decent play.
How about what Max brought up, the fact that he's going up against the same team for a second time in a row? I tend to agree with Max on that. I think that's an advantage for hitters when they get to see the same pitcher twice in a week like that. Is that something that you factor in at all? Or is that just gobbledygook that afterwards, if he does stink, we'll say, well, that's why?
Well, yeah, I do think that is a little bit of narrative where like a guy gets blown up their third time through the order and it's like, oh, they should have pulled him before he goes through the third time, so it's always like a reason to explain why things happen. But if he went out and had a great game, I think people would forget about it pretty quick that he just faced them.
Yeah. Let's jump to the next two pitchers, and I'm just running through basically DraftKings price, some of the top pitchers in the night, but really it's those two, Garrett Cole and Walker Bueller. But I'll throw Ian Anderson and Taijuan Walker together because I don't think there's much of a chance that this game is being played in Queens tonight. I would say this: Walker, I wouldn't touch after we saw the way that the Mets handled Jacob deGrom coming off the IL. Walker coming off the IL. Also, they held the ground, 63 pitches. And then Ian Anderson would have a favorable matchup against what's left of the Mets offense. But Max, this is kind of one that you can cross off, I think, pretty early.
Yeah, it's a pass just because this game is not going to play. Anderson would be interesting, like you mentioned, just because this Mets lineup is in shambles right now. And he's a really good young pitcher. And the weather would obviously be favorable if it played 50 degrees and, wind blowing in at 14 miles an hour is very good. But I don't think this game is playing, so we can just kind of cross Anderson off. Something to note is we do have Anderson projected for 28% ownership right now. So if this game doesn't play, Bueller and Cole are going to be even chalkier.
Wow. Yeah, it's true. So that's something we can keep an eye on as well. Let's jump to Madison Bumgarner. He's been so like boom or bust over the course of this year. You have to pay up to get that potential boom as it's happened in a couple of starts, a quasi no-hitter, I don't know, whatever you want to call that, and a couple of other nice starts as well. Is Bumgarner a factor at all for you on a night like this, Awesemo?
Well, he's been having a little bit of a bounce back year for sure. Especially the first pitcher to throw the 7-inning no-hitter. That was pretty cool.
He doesn't get any credit for it, but it's like the Armando Galarraga perfect game. It didn't really happen, but we know it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Galarraga's perfect game is almost like carries more clout than like a real perfect game because there's only one like not perfect game. Anyway, maybe I'm just biased because I'm from Michigan. But with Bumgarner, he's got a really tough park to play in today because Chase Field in Arizona, a pretty good park when the roof is closed. But today, it looks like it's going to be open and it's 98 degrees. So, matchup versus the Diamondbacks isn't anything to be scared of, but the over-under in this game is pretty high. So, we're expecting conditions favorable for bats.
What do you make of this, Max? Is Bumgarner even a consideration against a Cardinals lineup that does have some right-handed pop and Goldschmidt going back to Arizona there and Nolan Arenado in the mix?
Yeah, there's like one good hitting spot today, and it's in this game. Plus, Mad Bum was really coming out with some good strikeout stuff to start the year, but his last two starts, 5% and 4% swinging strike rates. So maybe people are finally figuring out that he's only throwing 91 miles an hour. So you don't really need to swing at those breaking pitches. So for me, I think I'm more on the stack of the Cardinals than I am on Mad Bum today.
And we'll get into all those stacks and where you can find some leverage and top values the back half of the show today, running through the starting pitchers right now. We'll get to some of the value pitchers as well as we're working our way down. But obviously, again, Garrett Cole, that's going to be your number one. And then Walker Bueller, kind of your 1B, or even I think just straight up 2, kind of his own tier tonight, maybe. And then we get to, we could throw these guys together. Martin Perez, Sean Manaea, and Hyunjin Ryu, who the projections really like. And Ryu's done a tremendous job really over the course of this year, at least 15 DraftKings points in all but one start. And that includes a start where he left early after he pulled his butt muscle, pulled his glute. So he's been a go-to guy over the course of this year, even pitching his home games in Dunedin, Alex.
Yeah, I think that the park shift is gonna definitely make him look a lot better today, because Dunedin has been one of the best parks for bats this year so far. So Cleveland, much better. The temperature is going to be about 50 degrees. That helps a lot too. And Cleveland's lineup this year just isn't very strong. The one thing I'm not expecting is a lot of strikeouts because the lineup Cleveland's rolling out a little bit less than 15% less than the average team in strikeouts, but still a good spot nonetheless.
Of Perez, Manaea, Ryu, Max, is there one that jumps out to you here?
Yeah, I mean, Ryu is definitely in a great spot. That game was another wet game, so we have to keep an eye on that. But obviously, Cleveland's lineup right now is not very good with a couple guys hurt. And Ryu is not going to give you like a ton of strikeouts. He's not a very good high ceiling pitcher, but at 8.4K, I think he can definitely live up to that salary. Like we're not paying a premium for him where we need 8 or 9 strikeouts. Manaea is another guy that I always like. This lineup without Trout that he's going to be facing is much easier to get around. We saw what Bassett did to them yesterday, complete game shutout. So I actually really like the spot for Manaea. Another guy that's not a high strikeout pitcher, but doesn't give up a ton of hard contact. X-swab of only 298, X-slugging of 409. Doesn't really walk anybody, 4% walk rate. So I think this is a spot where Manaea can give you a decent outing. And at 8.5K, like he's the same spot as Ryu that you're not going to need like 35 points from him or anything.
And now Shohei Ohtani is pitching today. He was originally scheduled to pitch yesterday, but got lost on the BART or something going to the ballpark. So he ended up saying, you know what, I can't do my usual prep. I'm out. Do we know if he's going to be in the lineup as well as pitch, or are you potentially looking at an Angels lineup for Manaea to go against that not only doesn't have Trout, but doesn't have Ohtani as well? I haven't seen that yet. I don't know if you guys have.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be something to keep an eye out for because on Fanduel, you can only play him as batter, whereas Draftkings, you can only play him as a pitcher. So I think on Draftkings, 7,800 is a pretty reasonable price for Ohtani. The park is amazing because it's going to be 50 degrees in Oakland today. And Oakland's got a very good power hitting lineup, but it does strike out a good amount. Ohtani really struggles with walks, so he doesn't go deep in games like most other pitchers have the potential to. So that is one downside to him, but obviously having a great year. Wouldn't be surprised if he puts up a big performance tonight.
It's always fun, by the way, when the pitcher gets scratched at like 9 o'clock. Like I was sitting down watching Nomadland with my wife, and then I get the alert that Ohtani's not pitching. I had him in like 40% of my lineups and I had to go through on my phone. And the movie's not exactly full of action if you happen to have seen it, and replace Ohtani over and over and over. Thankfully, ended up with a lot of Bassett because of that. I think a lot of other people did too. But let's get an Uber straight to the ballpark tonight, Shohei. No drama, none of this stuff again, huh?
Yeah, just stay in Oakland, man. Don't stay over the bridge.
Keep it simple. What do you make of Ohtani tonight, Max? Being that look, he's got a ceiling. He's a guy that can go out and strike out 9, but we've also seen him. He's done after 4 innings because that pitch count gets up and he's walking the ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is the Oakland lineup is a little bit scary for me. All these guys don't really strike out much, like Olson, Lowry, even like Laureano is only in the mid-20s. Other than like Chapman and their catcher, they like Sean Murphy, they don't really strike out that much. And they hit right-handed pitching pretty good. Matt Olson with his 520 X slugging. Laureano with 534 X slugging. These are all power hitters. But the weather is definitely going to be a good thing for him. Only 50 degrees here. The wind is blowing out, but I don't know how much we care about that in this stadium in particular. And also another factor that kind of hurts Ohtani's ceiling is that there's a lot of foul ground here. So he can lose some strikeouts to foul balls that are going to be caught. Still an out, but doesn't give you those 2 extra points, which is always nice on DK. So just something to keep in mind. We have him only projected at 9%, though, which I really like that ownership percentage for his upside.
And there is, as I mentioned, plenty of upside on Ohtani, as we've seen a couple times this year now. But yeah, he's gotten lost in the pitch count quite a few times as well. Remember, hit the like button, subscribe, set up the notifications so you're alerted every time there's an Awesemo show and you know what's going on. I like the way that Matt put it in the chat. You know, if you have a free video on YouTube, give that like right away. It's like taking your shoes off when you enter somebody's house. Common courtesy.
That's right.
Can't say it any better than that. And we all certainly appreciate it. Of course, you get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. Now, this includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, lineup builder, and much, much more. And if you're only looking to play baseball, you can sign up now for Awesemo Plus MLB's weekly package for only $15.95. Stop guessing, start winning, join Awesemo Plus today. And I'm telling you, it'll change the way you think about DFS and the way that you're able to attack these lineups and put together. I was always a guy who played single entry until this year and using Fantasy Cruncher. And now, I could play 100 lineups and try different things and take a shot on some guys. And if you have the ability to take a shot, you don't have to just go with Garrett Cole and Walker Bueller. You could try to find some low-owned pitchers, some value pitchers down in there and hope you hit on one of these guys. So we'll start, let's say Dallas Keuchel against the Orioles, Alex. And he hasn't been particularly good this season, but he was terrific last year. How do we like this matchup against a Baltimore team that does have some strikeouts in it?
Yeah, I mean, if we can get points for last year, that'd be a game changer. So I know our boy Josh Engelman likes to always say that. But Keuchel, he just doesn't throw Ks this year, only 12%. So really hard to get to in DFS. But it does look like if you're going to pick him any night, tonight versus a weak Baltimore team, in 50-degree weather would be a good night to do it. It's really hard to see a big potential there.
Yeah, he's not giving you big points, but he's differentiating you a little bit. And I guess if you're fading on either Cole or Bueller, you might as well load up on the Giants lineup, or well, maybe not stacking Tigers tonight, but you're hoping something a little off happens in those games, Max.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. For Keuchel, I just never play him.
Okay.
Just because it's a million ground balls, and I just want to try and find some strikeouts somewhere. There are some guys like we can find down in the dumps, I guess you could call it, that do throw up some strikeouts.
Jordan Lyles can strike some guys out. He gets the Mariners.
The Mariners lineup is quite strikeout heavy, which is really nice to see for Lyles. Lyles is like a weird guy. He started the year with a lot of curveballs, striking guys out, and then kind of got away from that. Then got hit hard. His last start, I believe, there was a start where I stacked against him, and he was absolutely lights out.
Two starts ago against the Yankees.
Exactly. 14% swinging strike rate versus the Giants, 14%, Minnesota, 15%. So, I mean, you don't know what you're going to get with this guy, but that's what you're paying $5K for, right? So last start was only 4%, but that was against Houston. They don't swing and miss against anybody. I think even Garrett Cole had an 8% swinging strike rate against them. So I kind of just want to throw that out and hope that I get the 15% swinging strike Lyles and kind of lock him in for that 5K. And, if he gives you 20 points, you're probably way ahead of everybody else.
He can rack up a few strikeouts, not a ton. He's maxed out at 87 pitches over the course of this year. Is Jordan Lyles someone that's popping up for you at all here, Alex, tonight?
Yeah, I could see getting to him. He's dirt cheap. The points per dollar looks solid, and I was just doing some research today. Seattle, obviously, we know it's a good pitcher's park, but definitely one of the best in the league. So I think that the matchup versus Seattle. They don't have a very good lineup either. So I think that there's some reason to go to Lyles where on a normal day, like you probably wouldn't get to him.
I mean, there's a lot of pitching on this slate. We have 12 games to look at. It might go down to, I don't know, 8 or something by the time it's all said and done with these rain issues. But at the very least, you start Jordan Lyles in Seattle, you don't have to worry about the weather. So there's a slight plus as far as that goes. Now, other pitchers, as you start getting down low here, Randy Dobnach is interesting. He started off really well for the Twins last year. As Alex said, those points don't carry over. However, you look at his numbers overall this year. I was looking into Dobnach. He was asked to pitch out of the bullpen to start the year. He stunk at it. Was awful. He said he wasn't comfortable in the role. They sent him to the minor leagues to stretch him out. He pitched well in 3 starts in the minors, didn't allow any runs at all in 2 of those games. And then last time out against Cleveland, threw 6 scoreless and had some strikeouts. So you're talking about a guy who's under 6K on DraftKings, has a matchup against Kansas City. But Dobnach looks like he's going to be in this Twins rotation for a bit with Kenta Maeda out. Is he maybe a better option than Keuchel or Lyles for you on this particular night, Max?
Dobnach, I mean, he got super lucky last start. 12 hard hit balls, 70% hard hit rate, and 0 barrels. And also pitched really well. So all those balls went for outs. Kansas City also doesn't strike out much. Carlos Santana, Benintendi, Lopez, Merrifield, all under 20%. I don't know how much upside he has, but on a slate like this, you don't really need much out of your SP2, just because they're all kind of bunched up together other than Bueller. So I think now that I'm looking at the slate, I think paying down for one of these 6K, 5K guys makes almost as much sense as playing an 8K guy, just because their ceilings are so similar. So in GPPs, I would definitely look to save money at your SP2 if you're not playing Bueller and pay up for some bats. So that means going to guys like Dobnach, like guys like Lyles that we mentioned. I kind of like Desclafani. We haven't talked about him yet. 6.9K. This Dodgers lineup is usually really scary, but not as scary as it used to be with Corey Seager out. I think Bellinger may be back. I'm not sure, but he's also has a pretty good strikeout rate. I mean, Albert Pujols is in this lineup now as an everyday player. Chris Taylor, Gavin Lux, and then you get a pitcher. Desclafani is actually pretty decent for the 6.9K price. Average strikeouts, really nice. Hard hit rate. So those are the types of guys I would look at over the guys that we mentioned, like Manea and Ryu, just because I think that their ceilings are very, very close.
Yeah, and, it's interesting what you say about the Dodgers, because you see Dodgers, you're like, all right, I'm not touching that game. But you look at the projected lineup, DJ Peters 6, Matt Beatty 7, and Sheldon Noyes 8. Like that's not the Dodgers that won the World Series last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, we always have to kind of take away the name of the team and look at the players that are actually playing, because even the other day, like the Astros were rolling out a lineup with Miles Straw and Martin Maldonado and like some of these guys that you don't hear about, when Brantley was sitting and Alvarez was sitting against Kershaw. So yeah, we always have to kind of look deeper and try and find these leverage spots, because a lot of people will just look at the name and say, oh, I'm not playing a pitcher against the Dodgers. I'm not playing a pitcher against the Astros. So yeah, I think it definitely behooves to make some more detailed observations.
And I'll throw out one more pitcher that I saw on the value list that we can get into a little bit, or, Alex, you can take wherever you want. But Eli Morgan is going to be making his major league debut for Cleveland. I think you always got to pay a little bit of attention when Cleveland is debuting a starting pitcher, because they have developed so much pitching over the last few years. Now, Morgan's not a top prospect. He's making his major league debut at 25 years old, but he has struck out a batter per inning over his time in the minors. Some control issues this year. That hasn't been the norm for him. It is a tough matchup to be making your major league debut, though, against Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, definitely. And he doesn't project as a high strikeout guy either in the minor league. Over 3 starts, he has a 23% K rate, pretty much in line with his results in 2019 in AA. So I think what we're going to see is about a 20% strikeout rate. So that's the kind of guy you can take in a good matchup, not versus the Blue Jays. So I don't see getting there tonight.
So let's look at the pitching overall here. Are you just Cole, and Bueller. What pitchers down the line do you like a little bit on this night, Alex, now that we've broken it down a bit?
Yeah, I like Cole so much that I'm only going to play on Fanduel tonight, so I don't have to pick a second pitcher. But actually, I mean, Lyles is kind of interesting. If you need a cheapie or let's see, Ryu, he has not a huge strikeout upside, but the price is very solid in the park. And then yeah, the Bueller, it's a little bit hard to see like fitting him with Cole, but certainly good. And then Ohtani, kind of a wild card, a player, but his strikeout rate is very good.
Max, are you thinking along the same ways? Or I know Anthony DeSclafani is a guy that you brought up earlier.
Yeah, another guy I wanted to bring up was Casey Mize.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously going up against the Yankees, so not the best matchup in the world. But again, getting that really good Detroit weather, 48 degrees, wind blowing, 17 miles an hour. And he's looked really, really solid ever since ever since the beginning of the year, actually. So his first couple starts were rough. But looking at his last couple starts against Kansas City, he had a 16% swinging strike rate. Obviously, one of the top prospects that we have in the league, number 1 draft pick, and kind of figuring out his way around the majors, and throwing 94 miles an hour on his fastball, nice split finger, nice cutter. I think he could project pretty well at 6.7K. This Yankee lineup does have a lot of power, but they also have a bunch of strikeouts. And it's not the same lineup that you would normally see. The projected lineup right now doesn't have Voit in it, doesn't have Stan, obviously. So you are getting like a Gardner, Frazier, Higashioka, Odor, 6 through 9. So I do think Mize is interesting today.
All right. And we do have the Tigers lineup, which we'll get into on the other side here, as we'll let you know that our deeper dive show here is brought to you by No House Advantage. Now, they're taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform, it levels the playing field. It makes it easier for you to win real cash as compared to your traditional DFS sites. And with over 500 player prop offerings, No House Advantage is the largest provider of player props in the industry. The best part, you receive a $20 first match deposit bonus today with promo code Awesemo. So beat your friends, not the house. Download in the App Store and win big with player props today over at No House Advantage. And now we start to focus on the stacks a little bit. I don't think there's going to be a ton of people stacking the Tigers against Garrett Cole, but we can look at this lineup really from Cole's perspective. You have Grossman at the top. Harold Castro is hitting number 2 in this lineup. Miguel Cabrera will be in there batting cleanup. So I guess, he's not asking out against in a tough matchup here. I mean, there's not much that scares you here. You go down to Victor Reyes and Jake Rogers in those 8-9 spots. Alex, I don't think any big surprises here for the Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, I had a feeling this lineup wasn't going to be scary. So the fact that it isn't the biggest shocker.
And we do have lineups for Miami and Boston as well. This is another one of those games that weather could be an issue with. Cody Petit, Martin Perez, we didn't get into them too much as far as the pitchers go. Max, are you looking at these lineups? Is there anything that jumps out to you now that we get our first look at what the Red Sox and Marlins are potentially actually putting out there?
I mean, it's nice for them to announce the lineups because I don't think this game is going to play.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Red Sox are always interesting. Cody Petit is somebody who made me a bunch of money the other day. I kind of locked him in everywhere when he was pitching for the Marlins against the Mets. But this is a completely different spot. Obviously, the Red Sox very good throughout, and for some reason even found the resurgent Danny Santana, who I didn't think had it anymore, but apparently, hitting home runs in Boston. So, yeah, I mean, lineup looks good. Petit isn't somebody that I'm going to be too scared of. So if whatever reason this game plays, the Red Sox stack does look interesting.
Okay. And there are a lot of interesting stacks tonight, not sexy stacks, but interesting. And that's what we'll end up saying, I think, a lot While the pitching is just, Garrett Cole, pound him as much as you can. The offense is really all over the place. And the top stacks tool, of course, something you want to be utilizing at Awesemo.com. Gives a percentage, top stacks, estimates the ownership as well. You could try to find some leverage, some different things there. I mean, it's shocking to me, the team that we see atop the top stack percentage, it's the Milwaukee Brewers, who have been awful offensively this year, but Keston Ura is back from a trip in the minors. Christian Yelich is in the mix, and they're going up against John Lester. But the disappointing part is that rain is a big factor in DC on this night, Alex. But if we throw the rain out the window for now, what do you make of stacking the Brewers?
Well, this game actually, they announced just now that it's postponed tonight. So
Makes it
I think
it's not a good team to stack. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't mind it because you can late swap all the way up until the last game, but otherwise, I wouldn't play it.
That's the advice that we all come here for. Don't play the rain out. So yeah, sorry, but this will be interesting because this will be something to watch as these games get rained out. You talked about it where, look, if I don't know, Hyunjin Ryu gets rained out, a lot of people are potentially on him. Well, where's that ownership going to go? And now people that might have been on the Brewers going to go somewhere else. Number 2 on the top stack total. There's no Coors Field tonight. It's not 2 teams that are over like 10%. You have a bunch of games, but the Chicago White Sox are next up on this, Max. Is that one that you give a little closer look at, being that they might actually play?
Yeah, I think leverage and finding the low owned stacks is going to be the key to tonight's slate, just because everybody projects so close in our top stacks tool. So I would love to see where that 17% ownership that we have on Milwaukee is going to go, because I'm hoping people will get off that game now. Actually, people play that game, that would be great.
Yeah, it's down. Well, I'll say this: it's down to 2% when I most recently refreshed. So now it's the Cardinals and Diamondbacks that have the highest ownership,
which makes sense. Yeah,
with the weather.
Yeah, so that makes perfect sense because it's 95 degrees in Arizona. But yeah, the White Sox now have a little bit of a negative leverage score. We see 9% of the ownership going to them. I mean, I love this White Sox stack always. They have a ton of power up and down the lineup, and they're facing Matt Harvey, which never hurts. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that's giving up only 17% strikeouts, X slugging of 423, really nice launch angle at 14 degrees. So, you're not going to worry too many ground balls with Matt Harvey. The weather isn't great here, but it's not great anywhere, right? Other than Arizona. So 50 degrees and 19 mile an hour wind, not blowing out. So yeah, I mean, the White Sox had the same weather yesterday and still were one of the best stacks. Obviously much shorter slate, but they just have so much power, Moncada didn't even hit that well yesterday, but he's one of their best hitters, 42% hard hit. Grandal, 54%, Abreu, 53%. All these guys have X slugging over 500. They also strike out, but you don't really worry about that with Harvey. So yeah, I mean, this is probably my top stack of the day as far as upside goes.
And Alex, I think like the toughest part of stacking the White Sox is, which 4 or 5 guys you're going to go to, because you have to make a decision, potentially a catcher with Grandal or Yermin Mercedes, and then first base as well with Jose Abreu in there. And I believe Mercedes usually has catcher and first base eligibility. So it's like crowded, which is why it's typically a good stack. It's a deep lineup.
Yeah, this team, it's gonna make lineup construction interesting tonight because you do have a lot of guys floating around that 5K range. So it is driving down the ownership a little bit on the White Sox. Not in the best spot ever, but certainly one of the best on the slate. So I don't mind if you're not playing Cole. Like a good enough reason would be getting to some White Sox, and if you avoid the obvious value plays like Andrew Vaughn, maybe you can get a little bit of an edge over other people who stack it up.
So you'd potentially stay away from Cole in order to go to this game. So then, let's say you're pivoting to Bueller and then one of the, like an Ohtani or a middle range guy with some upside. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I guess you could probably fit in Cole and the White Sox, but it might like limit the other guys you can have in your lineup to only very cheap ones. So I don't know if I'd try to force that in, but I, I think that spending up on a stack instead of pitchers tonight is kind of interesting.
Well, let's look at the two lineups that have the highest ownership percentage right now, and that is that St. Louis Arizona game where, as Max mentioned earlier, it's going to be 90-something degrees. The roof's going to be open in Arizona. That's a pretty good appetite for some home runs, but the ownership level is so high right now that the leverage is very low, highly negative for both the Cardinals and Diamondbacks. Does it reach a point where you stay away? How do you strategize this aspect of things, Max, if you do want to play this a little bit?
Yeah, so for me, I think this is the spot where I would fade Cole because I do love these stacks so much. I think they both have so much upside. So if I'm going to play one of these stacks with obviously negative leverage, there's going to be a ton of people that play this stack with Cole because he's going to be 60, 70% owned. So I think it makes sense of playing a chalky stack if you love them. Like, these guys are obviously in really good spots, so you should love these two teams. More so St. Louis, I should say, just because of the power upside that they present. The D-backs don't really have too many power hitters. So yeah, for me, if I'm playing the Cardinals and their chalky ownership, I'm going to fade Cole and play some low-owned pitchers.
And you look at it the same way, Alex. How do you plan on attacking a game that everyone seems to be on right now?
Yeah, I agree with Max. I think the best way to pick a chalk stack is you fade the popular pitching. I think that combination is going to be really high owned. So if you can find some money to get up to the better Cardinals bats, who it looks like Arenado, Edman, and I guess Yadi's not a good bat, but he's going to be less owned. So I think you can do something nice with the stack.
Now, what people are certainly going to be looking for if they're not fading Garrett Cole is to find some value. And that's what people did like about the Milwaukee Brewers, is that they're relatively cheap, but it's not going to help you now tonight. Is there another top value, Alex, that you look at and could say, all right, with my Garrett Cole lineups, or maybe even a Cole and Bueller lineup, I can load up on these teams to make all that work?
Yeah. Let's see. So a top value lineup. Let me pull up top stacks. Milwaukee's the one that got rained out, right?
So I'll give you the top 5, let's say, on top value percentage: Cleveland, Seattle, Texas, Baltimore, Kansas City. So you got Baltimore against Keuchel. If you don't like Keuchel a whole lot, you can hope that they can go at him. They have some positive leverage as far as that goes.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Texas is kind of intriguing. Looks like no one's on them. It's in Seattle, so obviously that's not a great spot to be in. But Jordan Lyles certainly isn't really anything to be scared of, and it looks like Justice Sheffield is who they're going up against, and it looks like nobody's really on Texas, and it's not because there aren't any cheap bats either. You got Adolis Garcia, who's been slugging like crazy. He's only 3,500 on DraftKings, so that's kind of appealing versus a lefty pitcher, and I could see getting to some Texas here.
They do pop in the middle of that lineup. It's amazing. Like Adolis Garcia, who's designated for assignment this offseason, and when I first started seeing him pop up in all the optimal lineups, like, who the heck is this guy? And now you better know who he is.
Yeah, he's been winning people money so far. The few who have rostered him.
I guess, but we all thought this Rangers offense is going to be terrible, but there is a little pop there. Max, what value plays are you looking at now that we know Milwaukee's not going to be in the mix?
Yeah, I mean, Alex stole mine. The Rangers are my favorite low-owned stack. Yeah, Garcia, Gallo, Calhoun, Lowe, Solak. All these guys have really good slugging percentages. They also strike out a ton, which is what happened yesterday. They can make any pitcher look good, even Flexen. But they can also make any pitcher look bad, as we saw with Cole. So they're kind of very, very GPP-ish in that sense, where they can either give you 0, give you a GPP winning score. And at their prices, I wouldn't mind playing the two chalky pitchers with them and just hoping they give you that big score. I think also playing Seattle makes sense. I know we talked about Lyles, and obviously he's very boom or bust as well. And they have some pop in the middle of this lineup with Haniger, Lewis, and Seager as well. So I think I like this game as far as stacks go, as far as low and cheap stacks go, I should say.
I'm going to acknowledge it's probably a difficult question to forecast at 3:45 Eastern, but we know that within the next 3 hours, there are going to be other games that are either postponed or that just don't look great, that you find out it's going to be starting in a delay and people are going to run away from maybe the Chicago White Sox, maybe the Baltimore Orioles, and the leverage is going to jump there where we do have rain, which is, I know, half the slate right now. But if you start to see things dropping for a certain team, I don't know, maybe it is that Baltimore-Chicago game. Is there anything that you kind of know so people are going to run from because of the weather and the way that it develops over the next 3 hours here, Alex?
Yeah, I think the weather is going to be really interesting. We are trying to adjust for that in the ownership, so I kind of downgraded the Mets and Boston game because it looks like those games are probably not going to happen. The rest of the slate, I'm not really confident one way or the other, so we'll have to keep an eye on all that. But make sure to check our projections, postponement risk. Now, I think once we cross these guys off, that just means the high owned plays are going to be even higher owned. So it gives you just another opportunity to be contrarian on the stack side. We got about 2/3 of the stacks between 4 and 5 projected runs today. So you really can just take the field against some of the most popular stacks and be in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, and one thing I was kind of thinking about last night, I know last night was kind of an odd slate because it was so back heavy. There were so many late games rather than early games. But when you find out Shohei Ohtani's not going to start, well, now my options, there were still enough last night, but often there aren't that many. So, let's say that the Chicago White Sox become a relatively popular stack. Well, if they don't play and you find out at 7:45 and half the games have already started, then maybe you see St. Louis and Arizona jump up even more than where they are right now. Is that a matrix worth trying to play? Or is that something you just kind of deal with as you see it?
It's definitely an interesting thesis that the late games could be higher owned as people like swap off of some postponed games. I like that theory. That's pretty cool. And St. Louis, Arizona would definitely be the one. Especially, I don't know what you guys do, but usually I'm on Fantasy Cruncher using the late swap optimizer, and it's a little bit trickier to get unique when you use that. So probably would have a lot of that game if there was a game that was unexpectedly canceled. But I think we'll have a pretty good idea about what's going to play and what's not.
What do you think, Max? Is there anything, like I know we kind of started the show with this a little bit, but anything else unique when you have all this weather in so many different spots all over the slate, kind of potentially blowing things up as we talk about it now?
Yeah, I mean, it becomes kind of like an NBA slate where you actually have to stay by your phone and pay attention. I know we're used to locking our lineups in baseball and then kind of having dinner and relaxing and then following the games. But tonight you might actually have to pay attention. Yeah, I think one of the games that's going to get really popular if the White Sox game doesn't play is the Twins game. And I kind of just want to caution people against this Twins stack. I'm looking deeper into Bubic here, and he's actually been really, really good. His strikeout rate and his walk rate are not good, but the rest of the stuff, it looks fantastic. His expected stats, 35% hard hit, only xWOBA out of 290 and x-slugging of 326. So I think if this Twin stack becomes really popular, this is going to be one that I'm going to want to avoid.
All right. So potentially stay away from the Twins. Do you follow that thought process there, Alex?
Yeah. I mean, well, the Twins do have one of the highest run totals on the slate, but I do feel like this is a day where you can kind of take the field and be in pretty good spot. So I'm a little torn, but
You could say Max is wrong. It's okay.
Okay,
It's
I
been
might
known
get
to
two
happen
little
before.
points here.
A lot of it ends up being wrong with baseball, right? Even the best made decisions. It's just kind of the nature of the sport with how it goes here. And just we're talking about the stacks and what might be some of the better offensive plays. I know one of the things that I've started to do a little bit more as I play around with all the tools that you have at your disposal at Awesemo.com is looking at like who's the top owned player or projected top owned player on a given set here. And no surprise, we talk about St. Louis, Arizona, incredibly popular. So it's Paul Goldschmidt and Dylan Carlson and Yadier Molina in the top 7 for St. Louis. And then you have a couple of Cardinals there as well, and Joshua Rojas and Ketel Marte. So it's a little more spread out for Arizona, but St. Louis, we don't have the official lineup yet. The right-handed pop is there, though. Maybe Nolan Arenado isn't as owned as you might think on a night like tonight.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, Arenado is a little bit pricier, which is going to make it harder to get to him with Cole. So that's something you can definitely exploit.
Yeah, Tyler O'Neill should be the top owned player on the slate. The guy's X slugging is like 650. That's Acuna and Tatis and, like the Trout like. And he's 3K batting from the right side against Bumgarner in 98-degree weather. I mean, we saw him hit a ball yesterday that went like 450 feet, and he doesn't even have a big backswing. He just like barely hits the ball and goes super far. Mm-hmm. So Tyler O'Neill it should be the chalkiest guy here, I think.
And of course, if you hit on a night like tonight, whether it be with Garrett Cole or fading Garrett Cole and going to that Arizona St. Louis game and hitting on Tyler O'Neill, who hits, 3 homers tonight. Why not? You can hit the Awesemo Hall of Fame and tell us all about it. And something you can do, download the Awesemo avatar from awesemo.com/avatar. And then when Tyler O'Neill goes out and he's calling his own home runs like Babe Ruth, you place in top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants. You tweet the @Awesemo HOF account and you win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So pretty good deal right there. Now only one free month can be awarded to a user per calendar year. But if you're up there multiple times in a year, you're doing okay. So it's not the end of the world. And I talked about this. I want some people like giving some speeches. I want some Hall of Fame, braggadociousness here. Like bring it if you have that big night, that big moment. Would you be a good Hall of Fame like speech giver, Alex? Is that something that you think you have in you?
Yeah, I already have a list of everyone I want to thank. Now all that's left is winning a GPP.
See, I like the Michael Jordan way where you have a list of everyone who you want to like just stick it to and you do it in the Hall of Fame speech. That's probably the way my mind works, unfortunately.
Well, dude, I'm looking forward to you putting up one of these top 3 finishes so you can give the speech.
That's right. I'm just going to come at everybody. You guys just wait. And as you guys all know, one of the biggest edges in sports betting, shop to find the best line. Betting lines, they change by the minute. They can vary greatly depending on which book you're using or, the rain. It's why it's important to use Awesemo's Odds Shopper to find the best line available on the game or player prop you're betting on and give you that edge to help you beat the house. So head on over to oddsshopper.awesemo.com. What about, let's look at the stacks in terms of guys or some stacks that are not very highly owned where you might be able to find some leverage and you don't have a ton of weather to look at. So the Toronto Blue Jays are coming up there. And, this is one of those wild cards I talked about. Cleveland is starting a guy who's making his major league debut. We've never had a season where we know less about these guys as they're coming up. At least now we have 3 minor league starts to look at for this kid. But it's when there is a mystery, Max, there's an opportunity as well if you decide to jump on the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I mean, the Blue Jays can kind of hit anyone, right? Like, there's just way too many good hitters here. And I'm not really going to trust a guy making, his first major league start against such a good lineup. I mean, Vladdy Guerrero should be the MVP over Ohtani. Let's just get that straight right now. I mean, Teoscar is really good. Grichuk, all these guys have power. If this game plays, even in this bad weather, I'm just going to definitely have some Blue Jay stacks here. Even with, I think their 4.2 run total is a little low in this spot.
And they always have pop. It's not just Danita.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have to disagree. I think not only will Otani win MVP, he'll win the
But
Cy
he
Young
shouldn't.
as well. But
If he wins the Cy Young, I think the MVP is guaranteed, right?
Yes.
Can we agree on that at least?
Anyway, yeah, Eli Morgan, like I'm not seeing anything that suggests he's gonna be like a excellent pitcher, even in these first 3 starts in AAA, 5 xFIP. So I think this is a great spot for Toronto, aside from it being a little bit on the cold side. So I do think that it makes a lot of sense to go to Toronto, especially if the ownership holds.
Another team I've seen with some leverage is the Yankees. I mean, it's crappy weather. We talked about Casey Mize might be a good option offensively as a pitcher today, but you could always find leverage on both sides on some days, Max.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees are always fun. Aaron Judge is probably having his best year, which is scary to say. He's only getting better. The bottom of this Yankee lineup is not what we're used to seeing. The last couple of years, they were really good, like 1-9, 1-8. But Frazier just hasn't panned out to what we think he's going to be. We thought he was going to be as me, a Yankee fan. And Gary Sanchez has obviously lost his starting job to Kyle Higashioka, which is something we didn't see coming. So Yankees are fine. I think Casey Mize can definitely put up a bad game here, but it's not something I'm going to go to a super ton, just because the guys I want to play are expensive, and it's very hard to fit them and Cole in. Whereas I can probably find a cheaper stack I like more against a worse pitcher than Casey Mize, and fit Cole in.
Well, we'll hit home run shots in a second here, but Alex, I'll just kind of open it up to you. Is there another stack that is popping up a lot for you that you like right now that we haven't gotten into a whole lot here?
Let's see. It's a little bit tougher to spot them today. One game that I'm really intrigued by, it looks like this San Diego Houston game. Like nobody's on it.
Exactly.
But the one thing I know about this game is the weather in Houston is bad tonight. So I think actually, now that I'm looking at it, that might not be the case. I thought it was going to be a roof closed, but that's going to be big because the conditions are a lot worse when the roof is closed. And I'm kind of guessing from this 8 over under that it might be.
Yeah, it says Dome Stadium.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of a game where I don't think anyone's going to be on either side, but I don't know if I'm going to get there either. Max, what are you doing with this game?
I actually like the Astros because Dinelson Lamet is a good pitcher, right? But the most he's gotten this year is 3 innings. So you're going to get a bunch of bullpens here.
What have they done with this poor guy? I mean, he's like a good pitcher, and they won't do anything with him.
They're doing the same thing with Paddock, by the way. Like, they're not – I played him like 2 days ago, and he gave up like 1 earned run, and then he pinch hit for him after 5 innings. He was at 68 pitches. Like, come on, man. So first of all, we got to get rid of the pitcher hitting because it's like limiting upside on these guys because they get pinch hit for. So I'm just sick of the Padres and what they're doing. They're doing like the Dodgers thing, which I don't like. Anyway, so Lamet being not really pitching that deep in the game is actually really good for the Astros. I would take the Astros hitters over pretty much most lineups that we have today, just because all these lineups are in bad spots. And the roof being closed isn't great, but it's not like we're like putting up this game against a bunch of games with 90-degree weather. They're going up against games with 50 degrees and rain. So the Crawford boxes are still there. It's like 350 feet away. So, I mean, I like this Astro stack, and it's going to be unknown just because they're all expensive.
Well, let me ask this way. If the weather is so bad in all these spots and we're not really seeing a natural offense to break out, score 15 runs, do you change the way you stack on a night like tonight? And we'll start with you on that, Alex.
So I think you could change the way you stack tonight. What I would be trying to do is kind of get the best of both worlds, Cole, and a really nice expensive stack, and do that by relaxing some of the constraints a little bit. So maybe instead of 5 guys from a really expensive team, you go with 4. or you go to some one-offs that are in the 2K range. So that's generally why I would stackle different, is so I can just fit guys together that aren't easy to fit.
And same for you, Max?
Yeah, I love that idea. Definitely more 3-man stacks for me today, just because I want to fit as much home run upside, slugging upside as I can. And with all this bad weather, like, it's going to be a lot harder for hitters that don't really hit for power to pay off for you. So I think it's definitely a day where you can relax your stacking requirements. Usually it's always five men for me for my main stack on a team. So today I could relax it to 4 or 3.
All right, I'm late, so just throw out a name and that's it. Who's going to homer tonight? We'll start with you, Max.
Dallas Garcia.
Oh, I like that. Let's I'll go with one of my Tigers, just because
that would be fun.
yeah, it'd be fun if they get some action against Cole. Unfortunately, none of them have any slugging numbers this year, so I'm already regretting this idea. But maybe Robbie Grossman. All
right.
Like,
Robbie Grossman, he hits a homer, steals a base, does the whole thing for you on this night. So let's see it happen. We got the tip-off coming up next. Our big thanks to No House Advantage, Alex Awesemo, Baker, Max Smotritskiy, producer Chris Karen. I'm PeteyMac. Happy stacking.